Greetings everyone and welcome back to another video. We got some news today. The Agile Classics ship bundle is going to be added to the store soon, and I'm sure they had a good time coming up with that name, but that's cool. We got a new Tier 6 update for the Saber and the Nova, which apparently a lot of people have been asking for. I know I've seen people ask for it before, but you know, it's like a thing. It's like a meme that even the devs are on now because they're I think Kale, the name of the ship on the 10 forward was "Don't ever ask me for anything again" or something like that. So apparently this is a thing. But I would like to point out that even though the Oberth is a really good ship and it has an awesome console, and people were asking for a Tier 6 version of that for a long time, it didn't really seem like it was all that popular based on, you know, content consumption and just anecdotal evidence of being in the game and not seeing very many of them. So I wonder how many people are going to put their money where their mouth is. All these people asking for a T6 Nova, are they actually going to buy it? I don't know. Or maybe just the people asking for it represent a vocal minority. But it seems like the player, I just feel like we've gone through this before, where there was this vocal outcry for the Oberth, and then it didn't seem like anyone bought it. So I don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy both of them. We're going to have videos. I'm going to do free-to-play builds. I think that's the thing I'm going to do from now on, is just try to do a free-to-play build of every new ship that comes out, or at least most of them. Starting November 4th, a brand new 2-ship bundle will be available in the Zen store featuring Tier 6 updates to the Nova and Saber for 6,000 Zen, which is, you know, not really much of a discount. The Agile Classics bundle will offer you a package of the new Equinox and Da Vinci classes, in addition to 2 fleet ship modules and 2 experimental ship upgrades. Okay, so you don't get a discount, but you do get some extra goodies. And those are good goodies because they have fleet versions. These 2 ships have fleet versions, so getting those fleet ship modules means you can get the fleet version without having to pay. And the experimental upgrades means you can get it to Tier 6X, so for just the base price, you get, you know, all the upgrades included. I really like that they do it that way. I kind of wish they would include ship slots as well, or even just dry dock slots maybe, but maybe I'm asking for too much. Anyway, the Da Vinci, which is the Saber update, is pretty darn cool looking. It doesn't really look like the other, like the classic Saber that you think of, like the one you get while you're leveling and stuff, is a lot more sharp lines, and this is very rounded. Kind of reminds me of one of those old Sega Saturn controllers. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but they had a Sega Saturn controller that was like round. And I used that a lot when I used to have one. So that was the first thing I thought of. But anyway, that, or maybe a Nintendo 64 controller. Can you kind of see it? Can you kind of see how it looks like a Nintendo 64 controller? You know what I'm talking about? It's got the 2 sides. You can imagine holding it. Anyway, that's dumb. Let's move on. It's a Miracle Worker Escort, and it's a Tier 6 ship. Has a hull modifier 1.1, a shield modifier 0.9. Those are low, but it's a C-Store ship, and it's an escort, so that's expected. It has a 4-3-1 weapon layout, which, whatever. At this point, I just can't get upset at these things anymore. Obviously, it's not optimal, but who cares? Bridge officer stations: 1 Lieutenant Commander Tactical, 1 Commander Tactical Miracle Worker, 1 Lieutenant Commander Engineering, 1 Ensign Science, and 1 Lieutenant Universal. Normally, I would think that might be a little heavy-handed on the tactical seating, but since the Commander is the Miracle Worker seat, it's kind of okay. It's going to make it difficult to use cannons on this ship because you'll have to downrank the important Miracle Worker powers in order to get, you know, the highest rank of cannon scatter volley on here. But if you're doing beams, which, you know, seems kind of weird, you'd think on an escort you'd probably want to use cannons. But if you want to use beams, it's not too bad because you can get Mixed Armament Synergy 3 and Narrow Sensor Bands 3, and then on the Lieutenant Commander Tactical, you can get your Beam Overload 3 in there, so that might be how I end up building it, just so I can have the highest ranks of the abilities I want. And since it's kind of suboptimal anyway, who cares? The engineering seat kind of favors doing aux to bat, which, you know, for the free-to-play version of the build, I might do. I'm kind of trying not to do that because technicians can be kind of hard to get, but yeah, this seating is not my favorite thing in the world. I don't like that Lieutenant Commander Engineering seat, but, you know, it's okay. It's workable. 4 tactical console slots, 3 engineering, 3 for science, 1 universal. The question is, do they have the fleet stats on here? or not. Let me scroll down and see. It doesn't look like it. I'm hoping the fleet version will have a 5th tactical console slot, but it might not. It doesn't really look like it says here, unless I'm missing it somewhere. Yeah, sometimes with these blog posts, they give you the fleet stats on top of the regular stats. I don't see that here. So the seating, not great. Weapon layout, not great. Console layout, not great. So far, this is kind of disappointing. Not every ship has to be a banger, but, you know, I've already read through this, so I kind of already know. If I weren't going to buy it to review, I probably would just get the Tier 6 Nova and pass on this ship, because the Saber is kind of a cool ship, but, you know, this is not doing anything for me. Let's go ahead and take a look at it has a new experimental weapon, which I do appreciate. The Gatling emitter, so it's a Gatling gun, and you know how with Gatling guns it winds up, it's like, and then it starts shooting. So it's like that. It has a little bit of a wind up time, and then it's basically like a machine gun. You pick a target, and it will keep firing on that target until you go out of range or it dies or whatever. So you can't switch targets with it. So like if you switch targets manually, it won't switch targets with you. It will stay on the one target until it can't shoot it anymore. The Terminator gun, it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. Okay, and that's just a gorgeous shot right there. Very lovely. I appreciate some of these, the work they do in putting these graphics together. If you watched my, Legacy of the Lockbox video, they were pretty bare bones back in the day. It has a Troyes protocol, probably pronouncing that wrong. That's the new console. Equipment draws inspiration for its name from a technique once developed by Starfleet Corps of Engineers, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it has activating the console provides the starship to take a shunt additional power. This feels like it wasn't edited to weapon systems before then activating a cloak-like effect. I saw the tooltip from the 10 forward, and to cut through all this, you basically get some, extra, it's weapon damage, I think, for 8 seconds, and then you go into a cloak mode for 8 seconds where you repair yourself. If you know the Universe class, the Pancake, I think the trade-off of that, it's like, when you would die or whatever, you go into a repair mode instead, and then you repair yourself, and then you come back out of it. So it's kind of like that. I think there's one of the Voth consoles is like this too. So that basically ruins it, in my opinion. Whatever benefit the clicky might have is ruined by the fact that you can't fire for 8 seconds when it's over. So it's like you get 8 seconds of boosts, and then 8 seconds where you can't fire your weapons. No one is going to want to use that. You might want to use it for fun, but that's a completely awful. No one's ever going to use this for performance reasons. We got the new trait, Energy Overdrive. Activating beam overload, fire at will, or exceed rated limits will increase beam weapon damage, speed, and turn rate for 10 seconds. The percentage is based on your distance to the target. Always telling people to get close to their targets, so if you're close, it'll be 50%. It says bonus here, but if you look at the tooltip from the 10 forward, it does not say bonus, so this should be a Cat 1 boost, I believe, because it does not say bonus on the tooltip. What that means is it's not that it's bad, it's just that I think it's preferential targeting, no, not preferential targeting, the trait from the NX, from the Lobby store, which a lot of you might have if you have the Legendary bundle, gives you 100% Cat 1 boost for beam overload, so, and rapid fire, which is better than this. So if you have the Legendary bundle, you definitely don't need this. Yeah, this could be useful for fire at will, because that trait doesn't apply to fire at will, and this one does. But we already have, I don't want to say we have a lot of good fire at will traits, but is this really going to make the cut for a fire at will build, especially when most fire at will builds are usually tanks, and they're going to have slots taken up with tank related stuff or support related stuff? I just don't see a home for this. In my opinion, unless the experimental weapon is somehow surprisingly totally ridiculous, this whole ship seems like a giant meh. The ship itself seems very mediocre. The trait seems bad. The console seems bad. Everything about this ship just seems like it's not really all that great. So unless you really want to fly it for, you know, the appearance and the new skin and all that, I'm just not impressed by this ship. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at the Tier 6 Nova, which is a different story completely. The Equinox pilot scout ship, the nimble and versatile Nova class, experiences a resurrection for the modern era in this update. I wonder if that's a play on, you know, Harry Kim getting resurrected by the Kobali, since people usually think of the Nova as like his ship. Oh no, he has the Rhode Island. That's different, isn't it? Anyway, I thought I was being clever there. But anyway, this is a pretty interesting ship. It's a scout ship, so it gets radar flanking, and it has a 4-2 weapon layout, which is pretty unusual for a science ship, for most science ships anyway. Hull modifier 0.9, shield modifier 1.2, not great, but it is a scout ship, so that's, you know, to be expected. You're going to get lower stats that way. And it has a commander science pilot, an ensign universal, a lieutenant universal, and 2 lieutenant commander universal seats. It's basically a raider. That's what these scout ships are. They're science raiders. And if you know anything about EPG builds or science builds, they love to do the console spamming, but also they want to do anomaly spamming and science ability spamming. So they want to have as many abilities as they can that can trigger all of their stuff. And this doesn't have temp ops, so you're not going to be able to get those temp ops abilities on there that you might want. So this is not going to be like top tier, S tier science ship. But the fact that you can rearrange your bridge officer seating any way you want is definitely going to be a real a bonus for this ship. I think the Fleet Draenor ship, that science ship, which I can't remember the name of it right now, the Boomerang, that I think is still going to be a better ship than this one, and that's something you can get, you know, just with fleet ship modules. But it's probably going to be decent. It has 3 tactical, 2 engineering, and 5 for science. And it's interesting that it has full pilot seating, so it's going to have pilot maneuvers, so that's kind of cool as well. It's definitely carving out an identity for itself. I can already anticipate in the ship review that the actual ship score is going to be pretty high, regardless of what the other scores are, because I think it's doing something interesting here, and I am excited about that. Can equip dual cannons. I don't know why on earth you would want to. But anyway, it does have the radar flanking and all the normal stuff. It's got a secondary deflector, blah, 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 normal science stuff. Let's go ahead and take a look at the console and trait. So the console, nucleogenic ignition. Synthetic nucleogenic energy can be used to generate an inverse reaction with the warp cores of enemy vessels, causing them to generate radiation-like energy that's harmful to that ship's connected EPS conduits, but can be beneficial to nearby other ships. And this technology is designed to replicate and emit a pulse of synthetic nucleogenic energy across a wide area. Each enemy ship in the area will suffer the deleterious effects of the injection while being forced to restore hull and shields to your allies in their vicinity. It also provides a passive bonus to control expertise and shield regeneration. That is an awful description for what it does, but basically it can be used to do a bunch of radiation damage. Is that going to be strong enough to find a spot on a lot of science builds? I don't know. There's already some pretty stiff competition for that, but it could be good. It does do radiation damage to multiple targets, so it could end up being pretty good. And it's kind of thematic. Equinox is one of my favorite 2-parters from Voyager, so you know that's all just pretty cool anyway, where they're torturing the aliens to power their warp drive or whatever they're doing. So now you get to do that. So if you didn't think we were war criminals before, we're war criminals now. Although I think it explicitly, someone said somewhere that it's okay, you're not a war criminal if you use this. Starship trait, synthetic good fortune. Here's the thing I'm the most excited about in this whole bundle in both of these ships. Activating any control, this is the trait, activating any control bridge officer ability or any pilot bridge officer ability will grant a minor but long duration bonus to global crit hit chance, along with increases to starship control expertise. These bonuses last for an extended duration and are allowed to stack to high values, and it has a passive effect as well. The Starship trait also provides a passive boost to travel in sector speed. And the reason I like that, if you watched my Legendary Voyager review, which is pretty old now, I was really excited that they gave us a Starship trait that wasn't combat focused. It had some benefit outside of combat when you're doing other stuff in the game. And having free transwarp has kind of made sector speed travel, not that important anymore, and free transwarps to, different missions. So you can do a ghetto transwarp by just selecting a mission that's near the thing you want to go to and then transwarping to the mission. But still, the fact that it exists at all is pretty cool, so I'm happy about that. And again, this does a terrible job of telling you what the trait actually does. It gives you, every time you use one of those abilities, control or pilot, it gives you a 0.5% crit chance, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it lasts for 5 minutes, and it stacks up to 40 times, which means you can get up to 20% crit chance, which is a lot. I'm just going to go out there and say it. That's a lot. The real question is, how easy is it going to be to get those 40 stacks? And I think after thinking about this for a day, because I chose to wait for the blog post to come out, I think this is really only going to be beneficial on ships that have pilot seating. Because if you look at all the control abilities in the game, a lot of them either have long cooldowns or they require a target. So if you're looking to use this on a TFO, where you're hoping to jack up the number of stacks you have during the briefing period, it's going to be really hard to do with just control abilities, because even something like Tractor Beam has a low cooldown, but you have to have a target for it. Whereas you can get several pilot bridge officer abilities that are pretty useful on their own, that have low cooldowns that you can spam even during the briefing period. So I think pilot ships are going to benefit from this the most. And it's not as good as Universal Designs, but that's like a really expensive trait because it's from a lockbox. So I think for pilot ships, this is like the more affordable version of Universal Designs if you have pilot seating. And I find that to be kind of interesting too, that it's, good only on certain kinds of ships. And it's not going to make pilot ships suddenly be the best ships in the game or anything like that. They still have a fundamental, lacking in that department. But if you were flying a pilot ship anyway, I think you're going to be really happy with this. So I think it's pretty cool. It'll probably be good on the ship itself. But this video has already gotten way long, so like mid-roll ad long. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. I'm going to go work on a free-to-play build for the Malachowski, and I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.